All right, hello and welcome back to Gotham Sound's coverage of NAB 2026. I'm here with Dave. Dave, I should have asked, is it MacKinnon?
MacKinnon.
MacKinnon?
Yep.
Great, perfect. Dave MacKinnon from Clear-Com, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, leave them below and we'll get to them with Dave. Dave, what are you showing off today?
So our big announcement at NAB this year is FreeSpeak Cell. It's a cellular-based belt pack. Works on private or public cellular systems.
Mm-hmm.
And the real innovation here is in a traditional intercom system or in a belt pack system, you're limited by how much spectrum you can use, right? So ultimately, you can only get a handful of belt packs. So if you look at, like the Super Bowl or a soccer event or something like that, you're always fighting with, how to get your comms, how to get your IFB. They're all kind of using the same spectrum space. So we went with cellular as an innovation for adding capacity and range. So in a traditional, intercom system, you could do 50 to 100 max belt packs before you start running into a lot of problems. With this, you can do 424. Right.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Okay.
And you can go miles, right?
Uh-huh.
So if you're on, public cellular, if you're on T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, you can be wherever that coverage is, and it works fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do private, so like some of these bigger arenas are doing, or, football stadiums or whatever are doing their own private network, it also works there. And then your only limit is how built out your private cellular system is, right? So during our field trials, we did a lot in big stadiums and very crowded environments, and it works great. And so we're excited to announce it here at NAB, but it's going to be shipping in a month.
Wow.
Yeah, so these are available for order now and shipping not too long from now.
And how many SIMs are in there?
So there's one physical SIM and one eSIM.
Uh-huh.
The eSIM is, most likely the way we think people will use it is the eSIM will be for public macro networks, right? So they'll hook it up to Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. And then the the physical SIM they'll use for their private network. That's not to say you couldn't do any combination of the two. We're partnered at launch with Verizon because Verizon has a lot of the infrastructure. They're selling and reselling a lot of the hardware. But then they also obviously are a big network operator, right? So they bring a ton of expertise that we needed to make this happen. So we're really happy with them as a partner.
So you said 400 plus belt packs.
That's on one frame, right? So you could bridge frames. I mean, it's virtually unlimited. It's just you're limited by spectrum at that point.
And which frame is that using?
That's the Eclipse frame.
That's the Eclipse.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have an Eclipse frame, 424. Later this year, Arcadia, which is our party line single RU, will add that. You won't. I mean, with an Arcadia, it's a smaller capacity because of the limits of the Arcadia itself. But from a FreeSpeak Cell standpoint, as long as you have spectrum and you're authorized on the network, you can put as many as you want.
And so, in terms of like the range of cellular, you talked about hundreds of miles, but conceivably, could you have somebody at home in their living room using that directing, say, from 1,000 miles away across the world?
I wish when I was at NBC during the COVID era, I wish I would have had something like this, right? Because you could stick it on a director's desk. They can engage it. It has a speaker and a mic. They could put a headset in it if they want. So yes. Great for Remy, great for any remote production, but also great for a photographer or a reporter. I could use IFB off this, right? You
could connect back to the studio.
Yeah.
And just have that as a regular
single IFB right
talk.
And then it's Fisher Price at that point, right? Like you turn it on and it works.
Yep.
And for a photographer too, if you're, especially in the days of now with broadcasters, it's MMJs and one-man bands, right? And so something like this where I turn it on, I have access to all my PLs, I have access to all my matrix endpoints. Super powerful.
And how many, there's a bunch of different buttons on the top. Is it the same as all the other?
So there's 9 channels. Yeah, so this is the same chassis as our FreeSpeak Icon. So that's the decked version. But our goal is that with all of our wireless products, it's the same fit and finish. So the only difference is, the titling and, the color. But if you pick this up versus an Icon, the person using it, there's no difference.
And have these been used in any events in like their beta
Yes.
phase yet? Anything you can name drop?
So I can't name drop, but I can tell you that it was used at a fairly large football event that took place in the Bay Area a couple weeks ago. It was used at an award show
Uh-huh.
in LA, in Hollywood, not that long ago.
Okay.
And so the secret got out. Essentially, we tried to skunkworks this thing a little bit, take it to some of the field trial it in places where we knew was going to be a tough RF environment. And then word got out, right? Once people in our line of work in the audio business or in the engineering business, once they hear of a product where it's like, oh my God, that solves 3 problems for me, then we were getting calls saying, hey, can we field trial this? We basically became kind of a quasi-rental company for a little bit, right? Where people were like, we need 20 of those for an event we're doing on Saturday. And we did our best to, help out with that. We have a bunch of stuff coming up. Big golf tournament, some other stuff that's happening, where these will be, used in a more than field trial capacity.
So does this? I mean, I know it can work alongside your other transceivers and your party line boxes and hardwire and all that stuff. But could this conceivably eliminate the need to run antennas if you've got good cell coverage?
It could. So in a large arena or in an area where you have to cable a long distance or you have a lot of infrastructure that you have to provide, something like this takes all that out, right? So it's, from a pricing standpoint, it's a little bit more expensive than a FreeSpeak Icon, but the benefit is you don't have to do any of that infrastructure. You don't need transceivers. You don't need wiring, all the rest of it. Yeah.
And how does the signal? Because that has to go back to a central frame, right? So is the central frame just connected to the internet, and is that paired with it, or how does that work?
In a public cellular model, this acts like our iPhone app, so our agent IC, right? So yes, you have to put it on the public internet, but it's a very secure way to do it.
Yeah.
There's a port forwarding and everything else. On a private network, you don't, right? This talks directly to the frame that's on the same private network. So it just depends on which mode you use it in, but for our existing users, this acts a lot like an agent IC app, like your cell phone app.
Wow.
Which is cool. So like one of my big things as the head of product management is making sure that the end user doesn't have to learn a new paradigm every time they shift to a new product, right? So this looks and feels a lot like the Icon, but it also looks and feels a lot like our iOS app and our Android app, right? So I don't have to train somebody, they can just pick it up and go, right? Which in our environment now, with people changing jobs all the time and freelancers and everything else, it's really nice to be able to hand somebody something like this, and they don't have to train them. They figure it out,
All right. Here's kind of an offbeat question, but with this being so decentralized, you hand this off to me, for instance, right? And I walk away and never come back. How do you get it back?
Well, so there's telemetry, so we can get location and all that stuff. But, I mean, later this year, we're integrating this with Arcadia. And then hopefully by the end of the year, early next year, we'll have it integrated with our cloud product. So there's a very good opportunity for somebody who doesn't want to own a lot of infrastructure to basically buy this, pay for the cloud intercom, and never have any studio-based intercom at all.
Wow. So you could just have this and a subscription service.
That's it. And you're done. And you can hook that in with all sorts of other stuff. So like if you did want to bring it back to a studio or whatever, there's ways to do that without buying a bunch of infrastructure. That obviously isn't going to work for your 400 or 500 endpoint deal.
Right, yeah.
But for your, commercial production or any sort of film production, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now on Netflix and YouTube, where these kind of run and gun productions, 5, 10 of these hooked to the cloud.
Yeah. Instead of, say, a 2.4 gig base.
Right. You can just run around. You could run around any city. You could have people in multiple cities. I just show up with my belt pack and I'm ready to go.
You do have to make sure you have cellular. That's a big thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I can't think of a place now in our world where you don't have access to cellular. There's a handful of places, but
basement. I mean, that's the thing, right? You go into a basement, you go into some metal warehouse or something like that. Peter Schneider is phoning in with a question. I may repeat it, but go ahead.
Hey, and the thing about this is that device doesn't use a lot of bandwidth.
Correct. So the way this behaves on the network, to get super technical, it's an IoT device. It's not a full cell phone device, right? So from a bandwidth standpoint, from a channel bandwidth standpoint, it's very small. In fact, when we did our testing with Verizon, we brought 100 units, threw them on the network. They were shocked at how little data was being used. And there's a couple benefits to that. One, you can get more capacity, right? You can add more devices to it. The other one is it lowers kind of the latency threshold so that is, the latency on a public cellular network is noticeable, but no more so than DECT or anything else, right? So it's not analog where it's like a radio where the lip sync is perfect, but it's pretty dang close. And so that's, being efficient with the bandwidth gets us capacity, but it also gets us that low latency, which we really want.
Got it. So Kyle wants to know if there are any issues using it with cell boosters, like the high boost system for remote locations.
No. So, in our office in Carlsbad, California, where these are made, so made in the U.S., which is kind of cool, in order to do testing, we're in a fairly bad cellular environment. We wanted to boost it, so we use a WeBoost system, and works fine.
Great. Okay.
And you can use it with femto cells, too, so I don't know if you guys know what those are, but those are...
No.
If you have a bad area, like a basement, this is kind of like a femto cell, but the carriers have them. So AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile have them, where it looks similar to this, like a little home router. You plug it into your internet, and it gives you cellular, a little bubble of cellular, right? And it's meant for areas that are in poor coverage.
Right.
But
so
this will work with this.
So with those trouble things, there are solutions to work around
100%.
that. Yeah.
This is an indoor unit. You wouldn't use this in a stadium. It doesn't have the range.
Yeah.
But if you needed to cover a basement or a theater, something like this works perfectly.
Any plans to add Wi-Fi into this?
So it's interesting. We've talked about Wi-Fi a little bit, and I think we may end up doing that. The problem with Wi-Fi is not necessarily built for voice, or at least large capacity voice. So when you look at Wi-Fi and what we do on our cell phones, when it goes to Wi-Fi, it's one call or it's one stream up and down. When you talk about dozens or hundreds of these, Wi-Fi as a standard isn't really built to handle that capacity of immediate communication. So it's a challenge.
I see.
Right, but it's less of a challenge with our technology and more of a challenge of the Wi-Fi standard. But it is something that we've talked about.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I feel like we got it. Is there anything that you feel like you want to say? How approximate price and you said
3,500 list.
in like a month?
And it'll be released for shipment at the May 25th.
May 25th.
What's the monthly subscription?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing.
Oh, no, the subscription for the cloud. What's the subscription
cloud.
for the cloud?
So you pick your carrier. You don't have to use Verizon. Verizon's doing the public or the private cellular. So if you wanted to install your own system, you pay for that. But if you were to, put a T-Mobile SIM in it or whatever, it's not. So we're not yet carrier certified. There's a whole process in the U.S. to do that. But we are FCC and CE, like regulatory wise, we can sell it. We're hoping to get the public carrier certifications soon. But then you would go and buy your T-Mobile SIM or buy your whatever SIM, stick it in there and go.
Subscribe. Yeah, and you're paying Verizon or T-Mobile, whoever.
Yeah, directly. Yeah, we didn't want to get into the cellular business. It's not something that we're...
Oh, hold on, Peter from behind the camera. Go ahead.
And you can get certain IoT plans.
I can't hear you, sorry.
You can get certain IoT plans.
Yeah,
to
100%,
keep it low cost.
And there's pooling. There's all sorts of ways to buy the data now. The other people we worked with was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Degero, right? So they're into the connectivity space. They understand this stuff. So we worked a lot with them to understand how to buy connectivity. And we realized very early that's not what we do. We're not a connectivity provider from a cellular standpoint. And so use who you want. You want to use Verizon? Use Verizon. You want to use T-Mobile? Fine. Doesn't matter to us.
Do whatever you want. Yeah. Great. Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Well, Dave, thank you so much.
Thanks
this is really, really neat.
Very excited about it.
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more neat stuff at NAB 2026. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Email us at info@gothamsound.com if you have any questions. Bye-bye.